Ever seen those so-called martial arts masters who claim to have unbeatable techniques, secret powers, or even the ability to win fights without touching their opponents? Yeah, turns out most of that's just smoke and mirrors. When these fake masters step into the ring with real fighters who actually train and know what they're doing, it's game over. These are the times when fake masters getting destroyed by real fighters.
Master, am I ready? No.
Conor McGregor's striking coach. Conor McGregor's striking coach might not be a wrestler, but he's no stranger to throwing down. That's something a confident bodybuilder found out the hard way. Despite the huge weight difference, the coach proved size isn't everything when it comes to fighting. During their sparring session, the bodybuilder likely relied on brute strength, but the coach's technique and experience won out. In a surprising turn, the lighter coach managed to get the bodybuilder into a chokehold and ended the session victorious. Overconfident MMA Fighter. Things got heated when an MMA fighter, Morrison Butler, offered some advice to a Kung Fu master's student. The master didn't take kindly to it and decided to confront Butler at his gym to settle the score. But things didn't go as planned. Despite being much smaller, Butler quickly proved why he's a professional, using precise kicks and strikes to take the fight out of the Kung Fu master. To be fair, the master was in his 50s and clearly not in fighting shape, so he didn't stand much of a chance. It was over fast, showing age and fitness do matter. Fake master. In this clip, MMA fighter Xu Xiaodong, famous for calling out fake martial arts masters, takes on Wing Chun expert Ding Huo. Despite Hao being one of the best in his field, the fight wasn't even close. Dong dominated him in a stand-up battle, landing punches at will. Hao insisted on keeping the fight on their feet, refusing to go to the ground, which probably wasn't the smartest move. Let's be real, tapping out from a submission hurts way less than eating a bunch of clean punches. Out of his depth. In this clip, a fake martial arts master decided to challenge a legit kickboxer, and it went about as badly as you'd expect. From the start, the Tai Chi guy looked completely out of his depth, like he wasn't even sure what he'd signed up for. The fight barely lasted 5 seconds before the kickboxer landed a clean shot and knocked him out cold. Honestly, it seemed like the master thought this was some kind of choreographed performance, not an actual fight. A bruised ego. In this clip, Muay Thai fighter Gus Caparros had a lot to say before stepping into the ring, but when it came time to back it up, things fell apart. Facing off against an MMA fighter, Gus got rocked pretty quickly. He even turned his back during the fight, a huge no-no in any combat sport. From the start, it was clear he was outmatched, and things only went downhill from there. Let's just say all the talk didn't help him in the end. Boxer versus fake master. In this matchup, the boxer put on a clinic, showing off his sharp footwork and slick head movement. Skills the fake Wing Chun master clearly lacked. Every time the master threw a punch, the boxer dodged it effortlessly, making it look almost too easy. While the master flailed with weak attempts, the boxer kept landing solid counter shots with his free arm. It was honestly tough to watch as the Wing Chun guy struggled to keep up and looked more and more out of his depth. One-sided. In this fight, a Taichi Master took on a Muay Thai fighter, and it was as one-sided as you'd imagine. Instead of blocking the punches and kicks, the Taichi guy kept trying to catch them with his hands, which obviously didn't work. To make things tougher, he was clearly older and way out of his depth. Meanwhile, the Muay Thai fighter stayed calm and completely dominated without even breaking a sweat. It wasn't much of a contest, just a younger, more skilled fighter having an easy day against someone who shouldn't have been in the ring with him. Underestimated. In this fight, an amateur MMA fighter went in thinking he'd have an easy time against a Kyokushin karate master. Let's just say he seriously underestimated his opponent. The Karate Master didn't waste any time, landing a few sharp kicks and precise jabs that completely threw the MMA guy off his game. In less than 30 seconds, the fight was over, with the MMA fighter having no choice but to give up. Holding back. I'm all for gender equality, but seriously, he couldn't even get it together and make it through one match. This is beyond embarrassing. I'm not buying that he didn't want to hit her just because she's a woman. He knew that going in. No excuses. When you step into the ring, it's about skill and strategy, not about holding back because of gender. If you can't handle the fight, then don't step up in the first place. Black belt. A lot of times bodybuilders get a bit too confident just because they're usually the biggest guys in the room. But when it comes to facing a real fighter, like a jiu-jitsu black belt, all that muscle doesn't count for much. This bodybuilder did his best and put up a decent fight, but when it came down to it, he was completely out of his element. The black belt's technique and experience made quick work of him, showing that raw strength can only get you so far. In the end, it was clear that skill beats size every time. Taichi Master. In this clip, a Taichi Master, famous for his supposed 200-0 record using no-touch knockouts, offered $5,000 to anyone who could beat him. Clearly his confidence was through the roof. But things took a quick turn when an MMA fighter stepped up. The fight didn't last long. The MMA fighter easily took him down, exposing the so-called master's tricks as useless. You can see the shock on the Taichi guy's face when he realizes none of his moves are working. Internet troll. This internet troll, way too full of himself, decided to charge at a real boxer without thinking things through. He probably thought his online bravado would carry over. But as soon as he threw a punch, the boxer grabbed him and quickly showed him how out of his league he was. The troll barely had a chance to react before he was put in his place, completely overwhelmed by the boxer's skills. It was a total mismatch, and it didn't take long for the troll to realize his tough guy act didn't work in the real world. Twitter user. In July 2022, Twitter user Fab Tanga made a bold move by traveling 200 miles and spending 110 just to confront flyweight champion Edwards at his gym. Edwards, cool as ever, invited Tanga to spar and even streamed the whole thing online. Tanga tried to throw some basic shots, but it quickly became clear he was out of his depth. After just 2 rounds, he was completely exhausted and had no choice but to tap out. It was a brutal reality check for Tanga, who probably didn't expect the champ to make him quit so fast. "14 seconds. Kimbo Slice was a huge name in MMA during his time, known for his raw power and street fighting skills, and many considered him one of the best. But when he faced off against Seth Petruzzelli, things didn't go his way. Despite being the lighter fighter, Petruzzelli was just too skilled and too fast. In a shocking turn, he knocked Kimbo out in just 14 seconds. It was a brutal wake-up call for Kimbo, proving that size and reputation don't always win the fight. Sometimes it's all about technique and speed. Clueless. This Taichi Master really had no clue what he was walking into. From the moment the fight started, it was obvious he was in way over his head. He looked totally lost, unsure how to handle the speed and aggression coming his way. The MMA fighter didn't waste any time, closing the distance and taking him down to the ground effortlessly. Once they hit the floor, the Taichi Master had no idea how to defend himself, leaving the MMA fighter in complete control. Easy target. This Instagram troll thought he'd have an easy time taking on Scarface's son, probably thinking he was an easy target. But the second the fight started, it became clear he had no real plan. Scarface's son, who knew how to throw a punch, quickly took control of the situation. The troll didn't stand a chance, and it didn't take long for him to realize he was way out of his league. Street Fighter. A street fighter walked into a gym full of confidence and decided to challenge a real boxer, thinking it was going to be a piece of cake. Well, things didn't go exactly as planned. The boxer quickly knocked him out of the ring, leaving the street fighter looking completely embarrassed. Turns out the boxer wasn't even a pro, he was just an amateur. Bully. This overconfident bully actually traveled an hour just to challenge a boxing coach to a sparring match, thinking he'd have the upper hand. But from the moment the fight kicked off, it was clear who was in control. The coach easily took the lead, showing he knew exactly what he was doing. Even though the coach gave the bully a few chances, it was obvious the guy had no real skill to back up his attitude. The bully quickly found out that all his bravado didn't mean much when facing someone with actual training and experience. It was a total mismatch. Full force. This guy really didn't even try to fight the other boxer. Instead of defending himself, he literally turned his back to him and just tried to wave off the punches, like he thought he was too good to bother. The worst part? The boxer wasn't even going full force. He was barely breaking a sweat. Despite the guy's total lack of effort, the boxer still had control of the whole situation. It was a one-sided show, with the guy making himself look ridiculous by acting like he didn't even care. If he thought that would work, he was seriously mistaken. Walk in the park. This guy thought fighting an old man would be a walk in the park. He probably even thought he'd go easy on him, but as soon as the fight started, it was clear he had seriously misjudged the situation. Badass kid. This guy decided to spar with a kid, probably half his age, thinking it would be an easy win. But what he didn't consider was the kid's skill. Despite being older and bigger, the guy quickly found out that size and age don't always matter in a fight. The kid was fast, skilled, and knew exactly what he was doing. Before long, the older guy was completely outclassed, and the kid ended up winning the match with no problem. Trash talker. This boxer had the nerve to trash talk Muay Thai, thinking his skills were superior. But when he finally faced off against a real Muay Thai fighter, it didn't take long for him to realize how outmatched he was. The Muay Thai fighter was way stronger and more versatile, landing powerful kicks and strikes that left the boxer struggling to keep up. It was clear from the start that the boxer was way weaker, and by the end, he was completely humiliated in front of everyone. His talk didn't back up in the ring, and it was a pretty embarrassing reality check. Rethink. This guy definitely didn't think things through before stepping into the ring with Saenchai, but he really should have. As soon as the fight started, he was getting hit with punches and jabs left, right, and center. Saenchai, being the Muay Thai legend he is, made quick work of him, and it was clear the guy had no idea what he was up against. He didn't stand a chance. By the end, he was completely embarrassed in front of a huge crowd, having been totally outclassed. Prideful. This guy, probably less than half the size of Bradley Martin, thought it'd be a good idea to steal his hat. Martin, not one to take that kind of nonsense, kept asking for it back. But the guy wasn't having it. Eventually, Martin had enough and just slapped him across the face. It was pretty clear that the little guy had no idea who he was dealing with. After that, there's no way he's going to be challenging Martin again anytime soon. Fake MMA fighter. This fake martial artist tried to act like he was some kind of expert, probably hoping to impress people with his skills. But the second the fight started, it was clear he was all talk. He had no real technique and didn't know what to do when faced with a real MMA fighter. It didn't take long before the MMA fighter had him figured out and knocked him out pretty quickly. Knocked down. In a super quick match, Xu Xiaodong easily takes down Taichi Master Chen Yong with just a kick and a jab. After the loss, Chen tries to make excuses, blaming it on not warming up, the soft ground, and the sun being in his eyes. But honestly, If Taichi was really as effective as he claimed, he should have been able to handle it during the fight. Instead, he got completely outclassed in just a few moves. It's hard to buy those excuses when you can't even defend yourself in a simple sparring session. Heated up. At Xu Xiaodong's gym, a Taichi master steps into the ring to spar with one of his students. Things quickly heat up when the Taichi master starts complaining about the rules and the moves, clearly not happy with how things are going. Despite his protests, the student dominates the match, showing that whatever the Taichi master was trying to do wasn't enough. No matter how much the master whined, he just couldn't keep up with the student's skill and energy. Jiujitsu Fighter. This guy, who clearly had no training, thought he could take on a skilled jiu-jitsu fighter in a sparring match. From the moment he squared up, it was obvious he was way too cocky for someone who had no clue what they were doing. He was probably thinking he could hold his own, but within seconds, the experienced fighter just tackled him with ease. It was almost like the untrained guy wasn't even there. Double the size. This sparring session went down between a jiu-jitsu purple belt and a boxer who wanted to test his skills. The boxer, way bigger than the purple belt, probably thought his size would give him the edge. But once the fight started, the jiu-jitsu guy had him on the ground in no time, showing that size doesn't always win the fight. The boxer had nothing on him after getting tackled and quickly realized he was in over his head. Despite being twice his size, the boxer couldn't handle the purple belt's technique and control on the ground. Expert. In this match, a judo black belt goes up against a jiu-jitsu black belt, and things get intense fast. The judo expert pulls off a slick shoulder throw, slamming his opponent to the ground and stopping him from getting into guard. From there, he takes control, getting into side control and cranking on an arm, putting pressure on the jiu-jitsu guy. The arm lock forces a tap, and just like that, the judo black belt wins the match. It was a perfect demonstration of how judo's throws and control can be deadly, even against a top-level jiu-jitsu player. Kung Fu Master. So this MMA guy had been traveling all over China, challenging Kung Fu masters, mostly the self-proclaimed ones. He was on a mission to expose them, and unfortunately, one master ended up being his next victim. The Kung Fu guy probably didn't think things through and accepted the challenge without doing a little background check. Big mistake. The MMA fighter quickly proved that all that talk of being a master didn't mean much when it came to actual fighting. A little research could have saved him from a pretty embarrassing defeat. Tables turn. At first, it looked like the little guy was definitely going to crush it. He seemed fast and confident. But then, things took a turn, and it was like, wait, the bigger guy looks like he's made of steel or something. The little guy just couldn't keep up, and it quickly became clear that the fight wasn't going his way. By the end, it seemed like the little guy might not even be a real fighter. He was probably just there for the show. Mystical MMA Fighter. After all that talk about being some mystical martial arts expert, this guy got shut down in the blink of an eye. And that was basically the end of the so-called Taichi Master. Well, at least for that moment. He definitely had more to say afterward, but honestly, who cares? The point is, he got totally served. All his big talk was pretty much pointless once he faced someone who actually knew what they were doing. Talking big. You don't even need to watch the end to know how it played out. That so-called Kung Fu guy just ended up making a mockery of the whole thing. All he did was make real Kung Fu masters look bad. It's a shame there wasn't a legit one in the crowd to step up and teach him a real lesson. If there had been, he would have learned the difference between talking big and actually knowing what you're doing. He didn't just lose a fight, he lost any shred of credibility he might have had left. No Touch Master. You saw his face after that first round beatdown. He was totally shocked. It was obvious he'd never been in a real fight before. And he's supposed to be some no-touch master, right? If he learned anything from that, it's that his students were probably faking it too. Seriously, they might have been more about the hype than actual skill. At this point, he's probably got to charge them for lessons. But first, he might want to learn how to actually fight himself. Secret technique. I'm no expert, but those two definitely didn't look that impressive. At least the boxer actually put up a fight. The so-called karate guy, though, didn't do much. He landed maybe 1 or 2 kicks, but mostly just stood there, getting beat up. It was kind of hard to take him seriously. Maybe he was just waiting for the perfect moment to pull off some secret technique or something, but it never came. Overconfident influencer. The guy who just got completely wrecked was supposed to be some regional kickboxing champion, and the other guy's just an influencer. So what happened? Did they switch titles or something? Honestly, it looks like the champ might actually just be an assistant to the real champion. But why the heck is he even in the ring in the first place? It's kind of embarrassing to call yourself a champ and then get totally destroyed by someone who's not even a fighter. Comment down below and let me know. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe if you haven't already. See you next time. Goodbye.